U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping kicked off high-stakes bilateral talks in Beijing on Thursday. Trump was welcomed on a red carpet at the Great Hall of the People. After the welcome ceremony, Trump and Xi entered the hall for their meeting, where they discussed topics such as trade, the Iran war, and Taiwan. Chinese state media report that Xi highlighted Taiwan as the most important issue in China-U.S. relations. He warned that not handling it properly could lead to conflict between the two countries.
Problem, we worked that out very quickly. We're going to have a fantastic future together. Such respect for China, the truth. And I just want to say on behalf of all of the great delegation that we have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, and I guess the best in the world. We have.
中美之间的共同利益大于分歧。中美各自成功是彼此的机遇。中美关系稳定是世界的利好。
Trump's state visit to China comes as Washington and Beijing seek to stabilize their relationship. It is the first trip by a U.S. president to the country in a decade.
Russian attacks across Ukraine continued from earlier in the day to overnight, killing at least 7 people in total and injuring 31 others. Officials in the Ukrainian capital said the airstrikes targeted several districts of Kyiv, damaging multiple residential buildings and civilian infrastructure. It comes as both Moscow and Kyiv resumed attacks after Russia ended a 3-day ceasefire with Ukraine on Tuesday. The earlier daytime attacks on Wednesday comprised of at least 800 Russian drones targeting mainly western Ukraine, killed 6 people and wounded dozens of others. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Moscow launched its drones in waves, deliberately targeting regions closest to the borders of NATO countries. Zelensky urged U.S. President Donald Trump to discuss ending the conflict during his meetings this week with Chinese leader Xi Jinping.
The European Commission is preparing to use carbon taxes collected from industry to subsidize farmers struggling with rising fertilizer costs, according to a leaked draft document seen by Euronews. European fertilizer production came under pressure following Russia's invasion of Ukraine and ongoing disruption in the Middle East, both of which have driven up costs for farmers and increased inflationary pressure on consumers. Brussels plans to address the problem by recycling revenues from the bloc's carbon market, the emissions trading system, back into agriculture. The plan aims to curb rising prices linked to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, through which around 30% of the global fertilizer trade passes. The proposal reflects Brussels' recognition of farmers' difficulties as well as the strategic importance of food security. It could, however, also provoke backlash from energy-intensive industries, which are required to pay for the carbon emissions linked to their production. Agriculture has so far been exempt from the emissions trading system and now appears set to benefit from its revenues. In addition, a group of environmental NGOs have urged EU leaders to use the upcoming fertilizer strategy to signal the end of fossil fuel dependency in Europe's food system.
The European Commission announced a non-binding recommendation to end conversion practices targeting LGBTQI+ people. The bloc's equality chief Hadja Labib called conversion therapy torture and said it is up to the EU to react and combat these practices.
It's a torture and it's a physical and psychological harassment that could lead to a deep depression or suicide. And that's why we need really to react and to combat these practices. And these young citizens who gather 1 million signatures succeed to create awareness. We've launched a study and we are going to organize, to put into place a forum for discussion between member states, between the Commission.
The resolution, however, is non-binding and falls short of the EU-wide ban on conversion practices that advocates had demanded. When asked why the executive had not gone as far, Labib admitted a lack of unanimity among member states.